Am I the butthole for not being nice to the people trying to force me to sell my home? A large company is trying to buy up all the houses in my area to luxury resort with a golf field, pool, and other things. A few days ago I got a knock on my door and someone came over and she told me she was offering to buy my home, willing to give me 5% over market value. Their bullcrap market value is less than I bought it for. I politely said no, I'm sorry, but I am not at all interested in selling my house, have a good day. She kept trying to sell the house and I told her have a good day. 3 days later she came back with a new offer, now 7.5% over market value. I said the same thing, please go away, I am not interested. Next day someone else called me, I just hung up on them. All of my neighbors have been getting the same thing, some are deciding to sell, but most are refusing. That same lady comes over, I was outside doing yard maintenance and says hello, good news, we have a better offer for you, 12% over market value, that's great isn't it? Surely we can work something out. I then asked, do you have kids? A pet? She then responded back and said I have a son and 2 cats, why? I then said how much for your son? I'll give you 15K for him, and 2K for both your cats. She confused said those aren't for sale, so I responded back, okay butthole, neither is my house, I hope you understand now, get the F off my property and never come back, you're not welcome here or anywhere in this neighborhood. She said listen, I tried being nice to you, your house will be sold, and we will try other legal means to get your house. Me, did you not understand what I said? Get the F off my property, you ugly disgusting bitch. She left. I'm scared that this company is going to try to use eminent domain to force me to sell my house. Not the butthole, I think it's time to speak with neighbors who don't wish to sell, then speak with a lawyer together. If this woman is threatening to take your home through eminent domain, then speaking to a legal expert is probably your best bet. This right here. The moment they started with the call she should have lawyered up. You can't afford to not lawyer up in these sort of cases. Because that company has made it clear they'll do anything they can, and that woman's attitude towards original poster in the end just proved that. Op should also have recorded all the interactions with her, or at least should do it from now on. This is clearly intimidation. Recording without consent from the other party is not legal in every state, country. Best to look up information on this. Just state loudly you're recording, she can walk away or consent. And then, after consulting with a lawyer, contact your local representative and the media. Oh boy, they'd have a field day. Local woman harassed by ex. Exactly. In a two-party state, the other person just has to be told. If they don't want to be recorded, it's on them to remove themselves from the situation. Like when you call and they say this call is being recorded for quality and training purposes, that's your cue to hang up if you don't agree. In a public space or over the phone, that's true. In your own home, you can record as you see fit. Again, depends from country to country. Where did original poster say they are American? In fact, it's pretty clear it's not the US, considering she said eminent domain. Edit. I'm aware eminent domain is a thing in the US, it's not called eminent domain though, even in Puerto Rico it's expropiation forzosa. That's a legal term, so that doesn't necessarily rule out being in the US. Edit. I stand corrected. The legal term in the US is not dominio eminente like I thought it was. That's a thing in the United States. I wonder how Ring doorbells would hold up in court, being as they record after being motion activated. They're allowed. When you ring the doorbell, you agree to being recorded. The camera and button are both glaringly obvious. Now, I am not a lawyer or anything law enforcement, but it makes sense that when you press a button that records, you consent to that recording. You could always throw up I didn't know it was a camera, but that's pretty unlikely when you can literally see the camera lens. I am aware Ring doorbells have motion detection, my mom has hers turned off. Many doorbell cameras record constantly or upon sensing motion, not just upon being pressed. I don't know about Ring specifically, though. Only 11 states require two-part consent. Hopefully original poster does not live in one of those 11. Two-party consent does not apply to recordings on your property of people in that place. It applied to phone calls and places off property where a reasonable assumption of privacy could be made. What if it's a surveillance camera placed right over the home door? Not really. Just a threat at this point. While it's true that ID works for private companies sometimes, if there's enough resistance and legal fortitude to drag out any legal cases for over a decade, the company will eventually give up and find a less complicated solution. Bear in mind, that solution might be to just build around you. Right. At this point they are harassing and bullying now. I hope the lawyers rip them a new black hole in their wallets. Can you even claim immediate domain to build a resort? I thought that was just for government projects like highways and stuff. There's no way a resort falls under public use, is there? In the US, they can pay the politicians to declare that the private development is a benefit to the whole community. Kello versus the City of New London. Supreme Court declared it was allowed. The kicker on that is that the court case got so much bad publicity that after they finally won, which didn't happen until all but one house was demolished, and they relocated the last house, Fizet backed out of the deal because of the bad press. It's not just a lawyer/legal issue. Lawyers in the legal route would be both time-consuming and expensive. Original poster could easily end up spending so much money that it's not worth fighting. OP also needs to begin to document everything and begin the public relationship, media angle to get control of the narrative before the development company starts convincing people that selling and letting them do the development will be good for the community by bringing jobs and such. OP should find other neighbors who feel they're being intimidated by the company and start using social media to paint the company as ruthless and using underhanded tactics. The threat of using eminent domain to force a sale should be outed. Not the butthole. Start going to town halls and showing them how bad the luxury resort will impact the community. Usually those companies talk about making jobs, but it's usually only a couple of hundred. What they never tell you is that it's mostly low pay, will be a traffic burden on the surroundings, and raise costs of everything in the area, like the Aspen model. If you can get the local government to be on your side, you will be in a better position. A huge factor that can work in the OP's favor is that golf courses are toxic cesspools of cancer-causing weed and bug killers. Have read anecdotal info about cancer clusters downwind of golf courses, and it's frightening. The amount of dangerous chemicals needed to keep the greens perfect and green is insane. OP and his neighbors need to find out who the local city or town council members are and start having talks and discussions, and original poster needs to start showing up at council meetings and speaking up about this. Get the city council members on the side of the homeowners. Get the city council members on the side of the homeowners. And any that don't side with the homeowners, take a page out of the political handbook and shame them. Karen McAuliffe wants to poison our town with toxic chemicals. Do you want your kids breathing the insecticides from her pet project? Vote her out of office and reclaim our beloved town from big golf. Politicians don't want to lose power. If they think letting businesses take people's homes will lose them the next election, they won't do it. Absolutely. The woman showed you her hand way too early. Many people are caught off guard by this. You won't be. The earlier you get on this, the more likely you are to keep your home. Judging by calling it the Spanish dominio eminente, I am assuming you aren't in the US, so this is just generic advice. Some things you can do now: ensure your house meets all current building codes. One way of eminent domain is enacted is by blighting or condemning property. If they don't have a real reason to do this, things look shady. Understand you will be in a PR war. Make sure your house looks like one anyone would love to live in. If people can picture themselves in your home, they can put themselves in your situation. Often that is all that is required for public outrage. Get a lawyer and let them guide you through the process. Do not talk to anyone about it without their go-ahead. Edit, definitely not the butthole. This. Also NTA. And I would officially file a harassment charge against her and or company. What she said doesn't sit right at all. You repeatedly told her you weren't interested and then she threatened you. Harassment is one bad thing, threat is another. Hope it works out. And after the lawyer, and with his/her approval, I'd go speak to the media. Especially if you have a one-party consent state and someone can get that lady on camera. How does a company have rights to take houses from people? I knew the government could, but a company? That's wow, I had no idea. Technically, it would be the government, but they often excuse things like this for companies as for the greater good, which they define as bringing in jobs or tourism. It's all BS. of course. But it's as legally allowed as it is morally reprehensible. I have a question. On Google, eminent domain is when the government purchases the land for public use. To me, it seems as though this is a private company who want to use the land for private use. How will this hold up in court? Better than you think. Eminent domain is a stupid law. If a business gets enough politicians on its side, hello campaign donations, to push through that the government needs that land zoned as commercial for economic reasons, homeowners are at the short end of the stick. Or businesses will just tie homeowners up in court until they bleed them dry in attorney fees. OP would do best to organize the neighbors that don't want to sell and get an attorney that is against this type of thing willing to work for cheap. Or counter offer with a high amount. Like high. The business may just pay them off to move quickly. It sucks. C. Hawaiian Housing Authority v. Midgip upheld by Kello v. City of New London. The Supreme Court decided and upheld that private property can be taken under the Takings Clause of the Fifth Amendment for another private party so long as that property benefits the public good. In Keto v. CNL, Justice Stevens wrote the city has carefully formulated a development plan that it believes will provide appreciable benefits to the community, including, but not limited to, new jobs and increased tax revenue. Allowing jobs and tax revenue be a deciding factor of public good. There was a lot more at play, but many think, including Justice O'Connor, that reasoning is extremely dangerous as it allows the rich individuals and businesses to bully often lower-income families out of their homes, as commercial use property almost always are taxed at a higher rate than residential property. Justice O'Connor said, any distinction between private and public use of property, and thereby effectively delete the words for public use from the Takings Clause of the Fifth Amendment. Not the butthole. You're under no obligation to be polite to people who can't take no for an answer. But companies trying to take over property aren't known for being super nice themselves, so I'd ask an attorney for advice on how to protect yourself. Agreed. Other legal means could be a bluff, but better to talk to someone in law to protect yourself just in case. Probably not. Large corporations are usually effing pigs and don't care how they negatively affect the lowly middle and working class if it gets them more coin in their pocket. Can they even legally take his property though? They threatened him with the Fifth Amendment, eminent domain, which states that the state is allowed to take private property and use it as public as long as the owners are properly compensated, but this private company isn't the state, so? Private companies can use eminent domain, through the local government, if it is found to benefit society. Kello v. New London. Web link. I believe that ruling is unconstitutional, since the Fifth Amendment allows eminent domain for public use, but that power was never granted for public benefit or private use. Effectively, this allows corporations and governments to collude to take land for private ventures that benefit the public. SCOTUS typically votes in favor of the government in cases of the Commerce/Takings Clause. Kello was a SCOTUS case. Interestingly, that was one of the most unpopular Supreme Court cases in history at the time of ruling, and in the years following it 45 states passed laws limiting the use of eminent domain for private property, and additionally multiple state courts ruled that use of the state's eminent domain power on behalf of private companies is against the state constitution. So while the Supreme Court said states/municipalities are allowed to do this, most states subsequently took it upon themselves to ban the practice. Some of these laws are stronger than others, and I'm sure an attorney would be able to inform OP. Ironically, the development that prompted this case ended up not going through after the land was condemned. The city ended up spending $78 million on purchasing and bulldozing the land, which is still vacant. Private companies can use eminent domain, too. Not sure if it has to be through the government. Some bullcrap about if it benefits society, then they can take it to court and argue it and have a high likelihood of winning it if they have a decent team of lawyers. Even if they couldn't technically take it technically, a corporation with their mind dead set on something, they would figure out a reason to take the land. Basically, the only qualifier of if it benefits society is if the government can make more tax revenue off of the new development. This was initially done only to a property that has been deemed blighted or a development impediment, on the principle that such properties had a negative impact upon surrounding property owners, but was later expanded to allow the taking of any private property when the new third-party owner could develop the property in such a way as to bring in increased tax revenues to the government. Holy crap, that's insane. Pretty effing alarming, honestly. I had no idea this was a thing until now. Yeah, you should look at the rest of the US laws for corporations. We aren't a democracy, we're a corporatocracy. Your entire life revolves around corporations, and so do our laws. There is a mall/plaza near where I live that was expanded a few years ago. The expansion was done by piling soil into formerly open space that held a vernal wetland, not wet often enough during the year to legally qualify as a wetland for EPA protection, which used to collect rainwater during winter melt and spring rain. New storefronts were built onto that land. Because that flood zone was filled in, the neighborhood next to the mall is now the lowest point and floods out 2 to 4 times a year around spring. Said neighborhood was low value even before, comprised of low-income families with a very high percentage being minorities, although they were able to scrape just enough together to buy the cheap houses because as far as I know they were all owned and there used to be a civic association that prevented landlords from coming in. Many of those homes have since been abandoned, presumably because the families living there didn't have flood insurance. Those who are still there are effectively trapped because their houses now have zero resale value. This all happened in a state that is abjectly corrupt even by US standards, so their courts and legislature were perfectly fine with this outcome. If they're already buying houses in the neighborhood, then I promise you they're not bluffing. Lawyer the F up. Not the butthole. You're under no obligation to be polite to people who can't take no for an answer. Op has now told this woman multiple times to GTFO and she keeps coming back, aka trespassing. If I were original poster I would call the cops the next time she shows up and start contacting attorneys. I would also put security cameras up around the house as well. If they're so bold as to make threats to take the house with other means, they might be bold enough to go snooping around for whatever reason. Under the advice of an attorney, I would also think about reporting the woman to the company, saying she's trespassing after being told never to come back, and that she's making threats about taking property from me. That's not how you want to start a business transaction. Put up cameras up. They're going to start doing some shady crap. Thank you for watching. Please subscribe to be the first to know about Red Rabbit Reader's new videos. If you like our videos, please like them on YouTube and share them with your friends. We welcome your comments below. Press to start another of our videos.